As you correctly said, 10 years ago we started Public Affairs, which has just had its 10th anniversary, I'm pleased to say, and has done probably about 500 books, of which I think we can be generally proud. They're serious books on important subjects. But as time has gone on, I've come to understand that the issue of content, the quality of the book, and the issue of distribution have to be dealt with in a sense in a separate way. Distribution is less perhaps interesting or glamorous than content, but it is indispensable. What we need to do is get good books into the hands of as many people as we can in all the ways that technology now permits. So the purpose of Caravan is to apply that model to serious books, taking the book and making it available in all the ways technology permits. E-book, audiobook, large print book, by chapters, as well as the traditional printed model. For example, if you driving in this morning, I was listening to a new book by Jeffrey Toobin about the Supreme Court called Nine, a very good book by a thoughtful guy on the Supreme Court. The odds of my actually having the time to read the book and sit down and curl up in the edge of my sofa are very small. But sitting in traffic, I got through 2 hours or an hour anyway of the book. I believe that the ability to absorb that kind of material is enormously important in the way we get serious information. I think that it is, in content, it is indistinguishable, meaning it's exactly the same words. It's the means by which you absorb it. Now, you may not feel that way, but Joe over here, or Barbara, who's got 3 small kids but wants to read, she might see it another way. In other words, you've got to accept the fact that all of us have a different set of requirements in how we access information and entertainment. This spring there was a wonderful book called The Looming Tower by Lawrence Wright, which won the Pulitzer Prize. It was a book about the origins of 9/11 through the stories of half a dozen people, including Zawahiri and Osama bin Laden and so on. Terrific book, 575 pages. Once again, I've got so much else I've got to read and so much I want to absorb. I didn't have time to read it, so I bought the full unabridged audio, and I listened to it, 17 hours. It was riveting. Every last minute was riveting. And you know something? I think I got more closely involved with it by listening than I would have had I sat and read it in a hurry. Because the simple reality is that when I got to Zawahiri's great-grandfather, I would have skimmed. You can't skim audio. And I can tell you with a clarity that surprises me 6 months later what that book said. So I decided to do it as essentially an R&D project, research and development, and went to the MacArthur Foundation, explained my idea, and put together a group of partners and part-timers, as I call them. The partners were a group of leading university presses, Yale, University of North Carolina, California, Beacon, New, and Island, which are nonprofit, prominent nonfiction presses, and the Council on Foreign Relations were in the first group. And in the second group, we've added Harvard, Columbia, Michigan, Minnesota, and Kent State, small presses to add to that. So 12. Audiobooks, the way they're now done, are very expensive to produce. You have a studio, you have a reader, you have bells and whistles. So what we said was, how can we reduce that cost, which is roughly $1,500 an hour? That's very expensive. So what we did was we hired a freelance producer with a public radio background, and he went to public radio studios around the country and got their downtime when they weren't using it for something else, when we could use to do the reading. He has an ISDN line, a line in his home studio, which allows him to listen to the reader. In the first season, we used authors as readers. So what we did was reduce the cost of making an audio by about 70%, so that instead of it being $1,500 a finished hour, it was $3,000 a finished book. Now, for a university press book, which is going to sell 6,000 or 8,000 copies, if you reduce the cost down to what we did, you can actually, for 500 or 600 sales, you can more than cover the cost of having made it. Well, that fundamentally changes the way that book will be available. Those books have never been audio before. So here you have it. University presses doing large print and audio. Never done it before. I think that expands the reach of what we're trying to do and gives people who didn't previously have the way to access a book the way to do it. I'm absolutely convinced that in the course of the next 5 years that there will be a fundamental understanding of how important it is to get digital material in and audio forms to the consumer, and it'll just be adopted. Look, every one of the major publishers, I mean, one of the privileges of being a small, relatively small entrepreneur in this is that I'm not burdened by bureaucracy and the corporations. But I know that at places like Random House and HarperCollins, they are deeply immersed in the digital, the transformation of their books into digital products. And they will make them available. And if the bookseller, and this is really important, if our beloved friends, the booksellers, do not know how to sell that kind of book to their consumers, the publishers will go direct. Absolutely. And one more sort of metaphor that explains what we're trying to do, and that is that if you look at the world in which we live, over here you have water content, and over here you have the thirsty people, readers. And between them you have the pipes. And to a very large extent, today's contest is over who really controls and manages the pipes. And what happens is that Google, a great enterprise clearly, comes along and says, you folks who do the water don't need to worry about the pipes. Let us worry about the pipes. We'll get it to the thirsty. And I look at that and I say, if they're going to deliver it, they're going to own it. And whatever their other virtues are, I want to be the owner of that material because I think I know what I'm doing with it. And Google or Amazon or all the other new behemoths have a different approach to material because of the way their history and the way they're structured. So if you look at this as a battle over pipes, I say the author and the publisher, the author, the editor, the agent, the publisher, should make sure that they can make books available through every pipe in every way that technology will permit so that the thirsty, the reader on the other end, can get it where, when, and how they want it. You know, the truth is that most people spend years writing books of great, sophistication that have a relatively small audience. I want books of great sophistication to have a much larger audience. And I think that this is the way, or it's one of the ways in which we can do it.
Peter Osnos, you've always wanted to do that, and I'm grateful to you for coming here to talk about the new ways. Thanks for joining me on The Open Mind.
Thanks very much.